Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's podcast. I have two surprises today. The first surprise, as you can see, is, or as shall I say, as you can hear, is that I sound like Hulk Hogan. So you have a new voice to listen to just change it all up. And the second surprise is I have a wonderful guest. A guest that I'm very excited about. And this guest is basically the person who has paved the way for me over the last probably nearly a year at this stage. When I first discovered her and her podcast, it just opened up so many doors and avenues, and then I trained with her. She taught me how to do quantum hypnosis, the healing modality that I use with my clients. So you could probably guess who it is now. It's Monet Combs, and I'm so excited to introduce you to her today. Hey,
Hi.
good morning for you.
Good morning or good evening for you,
Yeah,
or whatever time it is.
it's like 5 o'clock here and it's lashing rain. Can you hear the rain? Probably not.
No. Uh-uh.
It's like absolutely lashing out of the heavens. So
Oh my goodness. No,
so
I can't
thank
hear it.
thank you so much for taking the time to come on to the podcast.
Sure. I'm
And it's
happy
good
to.
to see you again.
You too.
I like your background.
Oh,
Your
thank you.
background.
Yes, I switched things up.
Yes, perfect. So I've already pressed record just in case. Okay.
Okay. Sounds good.
So yes, thank you so much for coming on. You're like our mother hen in
Aw.
the QHC course and the quantum healing community. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how
Cool.
you ended up at this moment in your life.
Yeah. Let's see. So I grew up in I would say like a household where new age spirituality was kind of the norm.
Mhm.
I grew up around a lot of crystals, grew up meditating. I actually went to the place of worship that I went to with my mom, who took me when I was a kid, was non-sectarian, but with a Hindu influence. So we learned all about reincarnation. We learned how to meditate, how to, connect with source, all of this stuff that was pretty unique, I think, um, for a child to grow up around. So I'm kind of someone who maybe I never had like a spiritual awakening. It was something that just kind of
Mhm.
I grew up with, right? It was just my normal. I actually it was I I I didn't understand that other kids didn't have that background, and so I'd always, I'd be like, "Well, what are you learning about in Sunday school?" And, I'm like, "Well, you haven't learned about, the the gurus and and how to meditate? Like, what are you guys doing?" So I thought it was really normal. Um, and so I just kind of, that was something that was just kind of in me. And when I was a kid, though, I was very, very sensitive.
Mhm.
Um, it like to kind of an extreme degree. I was kind of like a little adult. I would spend my days, meditating, um, uh, uh, praying for world peace,
Mhm.
universal peace, all this like weird stuff that most, I
Oh,
mean, most children are not really concerned about the affairs of the galaxy, but I was
yeah.
for some reason. um, find out why later, but uh, yeah. So I was just I was a very serious kid that was very, it was like I could see the injustice in the world. and I knew that it wasn't right. I knew that people, animals, the nature, everything suffering was not right. And it was very, I felt disconnected from others because of this,
Mm.
because that wasn't what was on the mind of other children.
Mhm.
And so, a time passed, ended up being, well, I had my galactic awakening then later, a few years ago, which was kind of like my version of maybe most people's spiritual awakening, where you have this big upheaval. It's like, oh my gosh, everything I knew was wrong. But for me, it was more of I had these kind of ideas of my soul's journey, my past lives, what I was here to do. I just kind of had these ideas in my head, based off of the what I knew about spirituality. And then actually what happened was I was always afraid of aliens. That was my biggest fear, aliens and dinosaurs,
Mhm.
which are kind of,
Similar.
yes, exactly. I didn't know it at the time. And I would have these nightmares about alien attacks. I was absolutely, as a kid, terrified of dinosaurs, like to a very silly degree where, it was like, I was just afraid they were going to pop out of nowhere and come eat me in my kitchen. Something I didn't understand and nobody really understood. And I was always afraid of some sort of alien invasion. That was one of the things on my prayer list of what I was praying to not happen. And so then what happened was um, I still had this fear of aliens, couldn't watch any movies, couldn't watch Jurassic Park for that matter. Um, and then I ended up with I became a life coach. I became a birth doula life coach, kind of got into this kind of personal development,
Mhm.
healing kind of space. And then I knew that there's some modality that was missing that I was meant to learn.
Mhm.
Um, and when it came along, it was past life regression hypnosis. And when I went through a program with that, and after the program, I had my very own session for myself, and with one of the other students in the program. And what came through was not what I expected. I mean, I thought I had just learned what a starseed was. Through that course, I started reading Dolores Cannon. I read The Three Waves of Volunteers, and I was like, huh, that's interesting. Like,
Mm.
that kind of describes me a little bit. So I
Yeah.
was kind of like, well, we'll see what happens. I'm probably a starseed, just thinking not a whole lot about it, but like maybe this is something that I will discover for myself through this session. What came through was not what I was expecting at all. I connected with a past incarnation of myself, from Lyra, which is a civilization, like an ancient
Mhm.
galactic civilization, one of the very first. Well, yeah, the first in this galaxy. And he showed me the memories of an attack on that planet that I lived on, by the Draconians, which are a reptilian species. And all of a sudden, everything kind of made sense. It's like, okay, this is where my fear of aliens attacks comes from. This is where my fear of dinosaurs comes from.
Mhm.
Um, and it really, really broke me open, because it was all of a sudden I had all these ideas about who I was. All of a sudden it was like, oh, wait, no, there's, there's a lot more here for you. Um, and, I was kind of given my mission in a sense, which is, to spread this awareness of, us as not just being these humans in a meat suit on Earth, but that there's so much more to us. And it was very emotional, very intense. It explained all of my kind of anxiety I'd ever had about everything. And this incarnation in particular, he was, he ended up, he worked in like the government in Lyra, and was concerned with peace affairs, things like that. And so he ended up helping form the Galactic Federation after this attack. So connecting with him was a huge, massive surprise. But it really showed me what I was here to do. And that's when I began kind of experimenting with hypnosis. I became really interested in finding out, okay, if we, if we do a past life regression on somebody, what if we just go in and look for galactic lifetimes on other planets,
Hmm.
as other species? And so I began, doing working with a lot of guinea pigs who would let me practice on them, and ended up finding out that if you go looking for a galactic lifetime in somebody's subconscious, you will find it. And that taught me, I just got really into learning everything I could
Hmm.
about galactic history, about why we're here, what we're here to do, and just kind of going. I just got it made me realize that this is something that if I felt this way, and I felt so helped and understood by discovering my own journey and why I am the way I am and what I'm here to do, that there must be other people out there that surely are also here to do big things and have connections to these other, their own beings. Um, and then that's kind of how everything unfolded. I put out the call, I started a podcast, and all of a sudden people started turning up and saying, hey, like, this could help explain everything for me. And
Yeah,
we'd go in and we would find exactly what we were looking for, without knowing what might come through. And
yeah,
so that just became something that I'm very passionate about and
yeah.
lucky to be able to teach people how to do now.
And very good at it too.
Oh, thank you.
So it seems like you were guided like a little bit. It seems like the path
Mhm.
was paved and it was only a
Absolutely.
matter of time. Excuse my Hulk Hogan voice. My voice is gone from a cold.
Oh no, that's okay.
But so did you feel guided throughout the whole thing?
Yeah, it was actually really interesting. When I kind of started to allow myself to be
Mhm.
guided was when everything changed. So, I had come to a point where I'd been a life coach for a while. I'd been mostly coaching, doing business coaching, things like that. And I but I just was kind of like, this isn't it. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, there's something more that I'm supposed to be doing. And that was kind of when I just kind of threw my hands up and said, I'm going to stop trying to figure it out. I'm going to go within and allow myself to be led, because I know that somebody's trying to reach me here and tell me what I'm supposed to be doing.
Mhm.
And once I did that, that was when all the kind of synchronicities happened, and hypnosis landed into my lap. And from there, we started to kind of uncover all the ways that I had been guided this whole time that I didn't even realize.
And how do you tap into your guidance every day? What's your like
Mm.
daily routine?
Ooh, daily routine. My daily routine's a little chaotic. Depends on the
Well,
day.
you have a full house, I imagine.
Yes, I do. Um, I always I try to catch myself. For me, it's kind of more about like a daily course correction. So when I notice myself kind of getting really stuck in trying to figure things out, trying to use my conscious mind to do everything. Um, and what I always end up coming back to is every time I've ever asked for help, every time I've ever said, I'm just throwing my hands up and somebody help me here. Like, I know you're, I know my team is, loves me unconditionally, will always help guide me. And I just ask for it, then I always get the answer. So it's more of like a check-in to make sure that I'm not like so stuck in this muggle
Hmm.
reality where it's like, oh my God, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, I gotta wash the dishes, I gotta make this post on social media. Right. And it's like, okay, hold on. always having to just kind of check in with myself
Yeah.
and my team. One of my favorite ways to do that is through my Galactic Heritage card deck it's my favorite deck that I use. And so I pull cards for myself a lot. That is one thing that I do. And I always find the answers in there. I may not know exactly what they mean in the moment, but then it all kind of makes sense as soon as I've integrated whatever lesson they're trying to tell me. It's
Yeah.
usually usually they're giving me some sort of a pep talk
Metaphor.
or a harsh lesson.
Yeah. Or a metaphor. And you
Yeah.
need to like figure it out and like put the pieces together.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a little riddle. And I'm like, well, okay, what are you trying to tell me today? I'm listening. Fine.
That's so funny. And because obviously I listen to your podcast as well every week.
Mhm.
How is your connection with Mark Cara coming along? Is it a daily thing?
It's the more I've opened up to her
Hmm.
through hypnosis, through channeling practice, the more and for anybody who doesn't know, Mark Carr is my parallel entity that I'm connected with. She currently works
Hmm.
on a ship in the Galactic Federation, a Lyran feline humanoid being. Um, sh so the more I've connected with her and opened up that connection, it's like the thinner the wall has gotten,
Yeah.
which has been a really interesting experience. So I can always tell when she kind of pops in, and it's almost like now I have like, it's like that connection it can't be unbroken because
Yes.
it's just there. And so I'll hear her pop in every once in a while, and then sometimes I'll, intentionally connect with her. Um, Certain things will happen, like what was it the other day? I was showing somebody like a picture of where I believe Atlantis is, and she has a history in Atlantis, very emotional history in Atlantis. And so I was showing a picture of the Eye of the Sahara, which is, I believe, that's where it is. And I'm looking at it, and all of a sudden I just is like all these tears come out, and I'm like, what the
Wow.
hell? Those are not my tears.
Oh,
So it's kind of like that, where it's like learning how to differentiate between me and her, because that's something that I'm sure she was coming through my whole life at times, and I just didn't know it. Now it's
yeah.
just that it's easier for her to come through, and that veil is a little bit thinner.
Especially when we get like outbursts of emotions and we don't know
Yeah.
what's going on.
Yeah, I'll have these weird experiences where I'm like, that pretty sure that's not me. And then as soon as I slow down and like listen, then it's like, she might want to actually come through, or she'll just relay information to me, and then and then I can channel it or pass it along to whoever I'm talking to, especially if I'm working with someone who she knows, or if it's some like she's connected to their parallel being. I've had clients like that, or if we are talking about exploring or talking about a subject that she knows about because she was there, for
Mhm.
example, like Atlantis, ancient Egypt or something, then it's like she can't help herself. She gets all excited and comes through and like, just dumps info on me. I'm like, okay, I get it. Thank you.
That's so funny. And
Yeah.
what's her opinion about what's happening right now in the world?
Yes. She came through actually as a kind of a surprise when I was recording my podcast to give her 2 cents on that.
Hmm.
It's all we as a species need to basically start figuring our shit out before we start trying to do things like improve, go into space, nuclear weapons, AI, like all this stuff that is way too advanced for our human
Hmm.
consciousness at this time. Um, our focus really needs to be on unification and seeing each other as the same species, right? not I'm from here, you're from there.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I believe. So what you believe is wrong, right? That is our biggest problem right now as a planet is this polarized type of way of being. And the way that we experience our identity right now is very nationalistic or individualistic, right? And instead our only focus right now really should be trying to understand each other, trying to unify, trying to come together and see all of us as one human species all on the same team. Because for us to even begin to fathom traveling out into space and communicating with other civilizations or whatever, colonizing Mars, whatever the heck, like we need to figure out our own problems first. And that really starts with being able to have understanding and compassion for each other, as fellow humans, as one pair of eyes looking
Yeah.
directly at each other, right?
Mm,
We're all the
because
same.
we're all connected, like we're all a
Yes,
tapestry of energy.
exactly. And so um and that will be our downfall, or it will be the things that unifies us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we're at, and we got to make a move, we got to bust a move like
Yeah.
it's so that we don't you know do anything dumb.
Yeah. Hopefully the latter.
Yes. Yeah, I
Yes.
believe so. I believe so.
Yeah, me too.
I'm very optimistic about it.
Mm.
Um, and most of the information I've gotten from other entities as well is that we're on track. We're heading in the right direction. Like, yes, things seem crazy right now. Yes, things seem worse and chaotic right now. But that's actually a sign that the momentum is building for us to finally reach that point where we
Yeah.
can integrate.
It's like the storm before the calm.
Yeah, exactly.
What advice would you give people who are living in fear right now because of that?
Yes. Oh, yeah, that's I know what it's like to live in fear like that, and it is hard. That's how I spent my whole childhood, was living in fear of, like, what if we destroy ourselves? Um and that being the thing that was, like, foremost on my mind. And my advice would be that, well, number one, fear fear is actually what is keeping us divided.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so starting to really do your own work with fear, around fear. What do you fear? What are you afraid of, and why?
Mm-hmm.
And because once we start really digging into that, um, if fear is kind of a uniquely human thing. It is a thing that we have to contend with here on this planet as a species, where we are in our development. Um, and so moving towards fear, right? Learning how to work with it instead of letting it be in the driver's seat of our life, right? It's like we might experience fear, but not letting that fear um, stop us from doing what's right, what's best, understanding ourselves.
Yeah.
Because fear is just a feeling. Fear is a feeling. We are made to feel any feeling as humans. If we can learn that fear is a feeling and is nothing more than that, then we can start to work with it instead of letting it control our lives. Because most humans are just walking around living in fear of everything, whether it's fear of, um, fear of global warming, fear of nuclear war, fear of each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's all the same. It's just you know, it's the same emotion. We have to learn to work with it, to sit with it, and to overcome it.
Yeah. Yeah. manage it really, like
Mhm.
anxiety and worry and all of those. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, because we're wired for that. Like a little um something that might help. This was something that helped me a lot when I really started going into shadow work for myself, was learning that like we are we are wired for survival, right? As humans, we have a negative bias. Our brains are always going to be looking for danger. They're always between two choices. If given the choice that we are going to be okay as a species, or we are going to blow ourselves up as a species, our
Mhm.
brain is going to gravitate towards we are going to blow up as a species, because that is our brain's way of trying to keep us safe,
Yeah.
right? Scanning for danger. Our brains don't know the difference between um, you know, a saber-toothed tiger and, um, anxiety about something that maybe is
Missing the bus
absolutely.
or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Being late for school, right? It's like
Yeah.
our brain does not differentiate between those things. That those emotions are going to feel exactly the same. It's going to feel, when it comes to anxiety, right? Like it's going to feel like you're under threat of being eaten, right?
Yeah.
When and and that's our brain's way of trying to keep us safe, keep us not taking any risks, right? But when we can learn to um, recognize that, like, oh, hey, yeah, I'm feeling fear right now.
Hmm. Yeah. Awareness.
Yeah, awareness without attaching a story to it, right? Or attaching extra meaning that doesn't necessarily exist. Once we can have that awareness of the feeling, that's like, oh, okay, I'm feeling fear because I had this trigger, right? And then it's like when we can kind of step back, become the watcher of our emotions, of our thoughts,
Yeah.
of ourselves. That's how we as humans begin to kind of rise above the limitations that we have because of our species.
Yeah. Because it can be a block, that
Mhm.
fear. It can block us from evolving.
Oh, 100%. That
Yeah.
is what keeps everybody just in the same uncomfortable hell that they're living in all the time, is fear. We
Yeah.
learn to tolerate fear and discomfort. We can live a life intentionally.
Yeah. Mm, yeah. Definitely. Going back to, you mentioned shadow work. Tell us a
Mhm.
bit more about your shadow work course plans.
Mm, yes. So I'm feeling really called to basically help humans do this exact work
Mhm.
that I'm speaking of. It was something that was very life-changing for me. It's all about being able to navigate our humanness
Mhm.
through but so that our humanness doesn't prevent us from living, um and from being in our kind of most aligned self. And of course, if we're all walking around, people are walking around with very little awareness of, their emotions, their beliefs, their fear, all this stuff. It's like we're all walking around, most humans, right, are walking around with, it's like the lights are off inside the house.
Mhm.
We're just surviving. We're
Yeah.
sleepwalking, right? So it's kind of about like turning that light on so that we can actually see what's going on, have that awareness, and begin to work with it in a way to so that we are not holding ourselves back all the time, or creating unintentionally creating situations for ourselves that we actually would not intentionally create if we knew that we had a choice. So I'm going to be doing a program where I was going to do it as a certification program only, but we're going to be doing it as um, it's going to be start out as a 6-month program where we are doing self-healing work together in a group live, along with some video material as well. And then for people who want to then go out into the world and do this for other people and help other people with their own inner work, then I'm going to have a additional certification track that people can opt into for maybe like an extra 3 months to get really, really good at facilitating these transformations for other people, so that there's kind of both options for whether you want to just do it for yourself, because we all deserve to do this type of inner work for ourselves,
Yeah.
or whether we want, and we kind of have to do it for ourselves first, right?
Yeah.
And then go out into the world and help other people with this
Yeah,
too.
of course. Of course. We
Yeah.
can't pour from an empty cup. Cliche.
Exactly. Exactly. And I see a lot, and it's really apparent, I've just being in the spirituality space, seeing a lot of people, online healers, people, channels, people, out there that um it's glaringly obvious who has done their own inner work and who
Mhm.
hasn't. And for me, it's important to me to help people even know how to
Yeah.
do this, because nobody gives you a manual on it.
Yeah.
Um, but it's essential to be
Yeah.
able to uh, navigate
Hmm.
being a human without just numbing out or tapping out.
Yeah. And for somebody who is a bit apprehensive to go on that journey, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, that life gets better. Life gets better when we do our own self-healing, when we do our inner work, when we face our shadows, when we open up the closet and we look at what's inside. Life gets better, right? It's kind of like, we're all kind of like, it's almost like being a hoarder or something. Like, we're all hoarders. We got all this like crap in our house, but like we don't
Yeah.
want to look at it. We don't want to deal with it. We're just avoiding it, right?
Yeah.
But the discomfort of like living in a space like that, where there's clutter everywhere, you can't move, you're contained and bound by these limitations. That's no way to live, right? So yes, it can be emotionally, it's not always easy to see our own wounds
Hmm.
and to face them and to look at them and to
Yeah.
process all of the stored emotions maybe that we've had our whole life because of these wounds. But when we get to the other side, it's like the wounds heal, they begin to close, and then we're able to move freely in the world.
Yeah.
So the discomfort of going within is always worth the freedom that you get afterwards, because you're no longer um, a prisoner in your own mind,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah. Freedom is the word. It really
Yes,
is. You're free from the cycles and yeah.
the patterns,
Hmm.
all of the unconscious things that you know, we just opt into without realizing we ever opt into it.
Yeah. And regarding QHC, what are your plans in 2024 for QHC? Will that continue parallelly?
Yeah, so we'll probably do it. I might do it in definitely in 2024. Might do it either after or during probably after the certification track. At some
Mhm.
point, we'll do another cohort in 2024, because it's this whole other kind of component of doing this deep, really deep subconscious work.
Yeah.
Um, but I also want people to be. I have seen what happens when people do this really deep, deep subconscious work, pulling up, galactic stuff, working in galactic realms
Hmm.
without doing their inner work first. And I have seen where that can lead people down a path to where things get a little bit wacky and weird. Because if we're going to be working with powerful galactic energies, we have to be able to have done our inner work too, so that otherwise it can be very, very confusing. Um,
Mm.
and the beings that come through can take the voice of our own inner wounding
Yeah.
It's like we got to clean the house before we can let the guests in, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. That's perfectly pictured.
Yes.
Yeah.
Otherwise it
Yeah.
can be confusing. Who's
Who's
speaking,
talking?
just as I who's talking through me, right? Like because sometimes it's our ego.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's an entity mixed with our ego. Sometimes it's our inner child who's wounded mixed with an entity, right? Because we haven't looked in the mirror and opened the hood of the car or whatever, whatever the metaphor.
Yeah.
So and that's why, for me, being able to navigate, okay, I have this being that I'm connected with who comes through, who talks with me, and who pops into my brain every once in a while. Um, if I hadn't done my inner work, imagine if I was still terrified of aliens. She pops in and is
Yeah.
like, what on earth would I hear?
Yeah.
What? Because my own fear would kind of mix. It's like we have these filters in our brains. This
Mm.
is just like if you're learning how to channel, right? If you don't clean up house,
Yeah.
then the message gets distorted.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like
That's
you're
why you
kind
get Oh, sorry, go ahead.
it's kind of like kind of making your way through cobwebs. You don't know
Yeah,
what kind of spiders you'll find.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you've never looked, right? If you've never
Yeah.
turned the lights on. And that's why, you get why I take channeled material very lightly. I there's only a couple channels that I trust.
Yeah.
Because and when I took my, my channeling program that I did, we spent um the first it was a year-long program. The first 6 months was just on this, belief work, making sure that we're not distorting the message that's coming through. And that can happen with hypnosis. It's like if you're doing one session, that's one thing, right? But if you are trying to repeatedly connect with a galactic entity who is
Yeah.
in your brain, you got to do your own work also, so that what comes through isn't distorted by
Mm.
your own fears, your own beliefs about the world.
Yeah. So interesting.
Yeah.
And if somebody wants to sign up for either course or find you, where could they find you?
Yeah, my website is a good place. It's thestarseedawakener.com.
I'll put them in the show
Um
notes as well.
Perfect. And then yeah, I'll have the landing page be up soon for Shadow School.
Mhm.
And then on Instagram is where I interact with a lot of folks. I'm the Starseed Awakener on
Mhm.
Instagram. I do on Tuesdays. I have my Tell All Tuesdays that I do where people who are, you know, curious can
Yeah.
come in and pick my brain about whatever questions they have about um, hypnosis, galactic civilizations, past lives, all this stuff.
Maybe Markara might show up there as well, would she?
Oh, maybe. Yeah, if she got like a question that was really like tickled her fancy and was really interesting to her, sometimes she'll pop through, when I get a question or a certain topics
Yeah.
that she likes to talk about, she'll give me a bunch of random downloads. I can
Yeah.
can pass those along, which is fun.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on to the show.
of course.
And hopefully, well, I'll see you soon. I'll see you
Oh
soon.
yes, yes, we are always in the same circles. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you. Thank you so much for
I
inviting me, Sarah.
appreciate you too. Thank you. Cheerio.
You're welcome.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much, everyone, for listening today. For those of you who liked my new Hulk Hogan voice, I'm very grateful. And for those of you who didn't, don't worry, it won't be here next week. I hope all of you or any of you out there aren't suffering with the flu. I know there are loads going around, so it's highly likely that there are people who are sick out there too. But the show must go on. I hope you've enjoyed this episode today. I'll leave all of the details in the show notes. And feel free to get in touch with Monet or me. And if you ever want to get on your own healing journey, please reach out. You can book a free consultation session on my website. Or if you'd like to do a shadow work course with Monet, that sounds very interesting and I'll probably do it myself. Definitely reach out there. I can't recommend her enough as a teacher, a mentor, a guide, as such a wise and authentic and trusting person who always holds space and just love. She really does emanate love, so I highly recommend signing up for her courses. So have a wonderful week, have a wonderful weekend, and see you next week. Cheerio.